Hey, thank you for joining me for another episode of Racking Up Rentals. Show notes for this episode can be found at thoughtfulre.com/E202. Please take a second to subscribe to this podcast feed or follow or plus or whatever it might be in Apple Podcasts or in Spotify, or if you're watching in YouTube now. We really, really appreciate that. If you're watching on video, please like the video, subscribe to the channel. We so appreciate that help. Obviously, it helps to make sure you don't forget to see anything awesome we've got coming up. And it shows those platforms you're listening and it makes them spread the word to other fellow thoughtful real estate entrepreneurs. So thank you for doing that. Onward with today's episode. And in some ways, today's episode is a little bit more tactical than we often get, but it's not entirely tactical because it's tied to an important strategy. So we're going to talk about both sides of things. Now, I am somewhat famously, is probably not the right word, but it's no secret, let's say, that I am not a contractor. My own coach, Greg, jokes that, I barely know which end of the hammer to pick up. And he's pretty much right on that. And I'm okay with that. I'm comfortable with myself. There's other things I'm good at, but that is not one of those things. So I have never even been tempted to try to conduct my own inspection of a property that I was buying. I have a great contractor who is just an incredible person and an incredibly valuable part of my team. And he comes to every walkthrough and every inspection with me. But I'm also never tempted to just do it with him, even though he is absolutely qualified to totally evaluate the property. And I trust 1000% that whatever he tells me is the whole truth and nothing but the truth. We always still, though, pay for a proper home inspection. And this is true whether it's a house, whether it's a plex, whether it's a commercial building. We pay for a proper inspection. My inspector and my contractor, like, hey, how's it going, man? They see each other all the time because this is what we do. So why would we do that? Now, this comes up in my coaching conversations a lot because I have coaching clients who do actually have some skills related to construction, or their spouse is a contractor or something, so they do have these qualifications to know what they're talking about and looking at when they're looking at properties. And so there's this sort of pull for them to say, oh well, yeah, he or she, they know how to do this, we don't really need to pay for an inspection. Why waste $400, $500, $600, $700 depending on the size of the property, $800, whatever, when this person is an experienced contractor and knows what they're looking for? Why would we spend money on that, right? And there's an important answer to the question. And my answer to that question is you should absolutely spend money on that. To me, this is where we tie into the strategic part of this, using our relationship-based negotiation skills and approach. The hurdle for you being able to negotiate an improvement in your deal that costs, or that's worth what you paid or more, and usually 10 times more than you paid for the inspection, is like so easy. It's like falling off a log. So here's what we do. We call this incremental negotiation. Incremental negotiation is when, well, let's compare what incremental negotiation isn't to kind of what's maybe more normal. So a lot of people, their mentality is, I'm buying a property, I am going to practically inspect it myself before I even make an offer or a proposal, and before it gets into contract, right? And so then when they do inspections, the inspections are just simply about verifying what they think they already know about the property. Like, they're hoping nothing new comes up in the inspections because they're trying to just like rubber stamp basically what they've already decided to do. But incremental negotiation is different. Incremental negotiation says we are going to work with the information we have right now, and we are going to reach an agreement with our seller based on that information. Then we're going to agree. We're going to be in contract. We're going to sign a purchase agreement. It's now official. We've got the deal locked up. Now, as we go to do our inspections and conduct our due diligence, we're not just trying to rubber stamp what we think is already there. We're actually trying to uncover new information that might help us relationally and very appropriately and logically and reasonably and respectfully improve the deal based on new information that comes up. And an inspection report is just one part. It's an important part, but it's really just one part of that whole incremental negotiation process and approach. However, it's an important part of that. And so an inspection report, let's just say that you do know what you're looking at, and or your contractor knows what they're looking at, and or your spouse knows what they're looking at, and you can simply walk through and see, the issues, or this needs to be repaired, or this is like downright broken, this is on its last legs, whatever it might be. When you bring that back to your seller and start to have that conversation with them, it doesn't carry a lot of weight because there's tremendous obvious bias in what you are telling them, right? So you show up with not a non-objective perspective, looking for things that you can say, oh, well, that roof has only got, maybe 5 years left. But when the seller hears you say that, or hears your contractor say that, or hears your spouse say that, it's not really coming from an objective place. An inspection report, however, it could say the exact same things, but it carries a level of objectivity and professionalism and even documentation that our own observations and stuff don't, right? In an analogous kind of a situation, have you ever felt like, I've been telling her, this thing for years and she's never listened to me, but so-and-so comes along and they say it and now she's finally listening. Like, what's the deal? I've been telling her that for years. It's kind of that sort of dynamic also with sellers. You could tell them just yourself, hey, I got up, crawled around on the roof. It looks like, most of the grains on the sheets of roofing and stuff of the comp roof are pretty limited in their continued lifespan. I think it's imminent. We're going to have to replace this roof within 5 years. You could say that, or you could have an inspection report that says the same thing, and suddenly that has a lot more weight to it. So now you've spent, let's just say, $500 on this inspection report. And in this inspection report, there's a whole bunch of stuff. I mean, inspectors don't do inspection reports and come up with nothing. In almost any case, right? Especially if you're looking for a property that's got some value add components. I mean, if it was built last Wednesday, they're still going to find some things. Those things will be very little, but we're not mostly buying properties that were built last Wednesday. We are buying properties that have been around for a while. They've got stuff going on. So we have this $400, $500 piece of leverage that now opens up the opportunity for us to go back to the seller and say, we found some things that you didn't know about and we didn't know about. You couldn't have known about it. It's not a problem. But let's discuss now how we can accommodate some of these realities. And now we are reopening the negotiation to be able to tweak things a little bit. Now, and sometimes that is as obvious as this roof needs to be replaced. So I either A, need you to replace the roof, or B, I need, a $10,000 credit for a roof replacement myself, or whatever, price reduction, something like that. But it doesn't have to also be quite that simple or simplistic or direct correlation. As a great but simple example also, if this is not a seller financing deal at this point, this finding might be the thing that allows you to take the conversation with the seller and apply this leverage in the direction of shifting to a seller financing deal, right? So maybe the conversation now with the seller says, it looks like the reality of this roof is that it's going to have to be replaced. I know that's not good news to you. It's not good news to me. I know also you're not going to be really excited about just adjusting the price or giving us a big credit. But the reality is this is going to affect our financing. It's going to affect our expenses on the property in the very near future. Instead of, let's say, adjusting the price to reflect this new roof, what if instead of me going and getting an outside loan and paying somebody else, what if now I make payments to you instead. And the reason that's really good is now we don't have to have a separate appraisal from an appraiser who's going to point this out. We don't have to have a lender scrutinizing the roof. We can just avoid all of that if I can make payments to you. So see how we can take this idea of the leverage from the inspection report, which is considered objective when it comes from an inspection report for the most part, and use it to adjust our deal in the direction that gets better for us. And sometimes, like I said, it could be a really obvious direction, like here's a deficiency, you need to fix the deficiency, but it doesn't also have to be quite that simple. We want to gather leverage, and paying $500 or $1,000 or whatever your inspection report costs with any level of rapport and relationship-based negotiation at all should be very easy to get back in improved negotiations, way more than the cost of your inspection report. And so that, my friends, is why I always pay for an inspection. And I would encourage you, no matter how expert you might be in construction and inspecting your own properties, to always get your own inspection report paid as well, because you can use it as incredible fodder for continued relationship-based negotiation on real topics too. I mean, you're not manufacturing things that aren't real just so you can go back and try to turn the screws on the seller. That's not at all what we're talking about. But we're talking about playing our cards right so that when we do find, say, the roof problem, that they actually believe that, and now we can use that to successfully navigate us towards continued agreement that's better for us and also realistic for the seller, but better for us. That is it for today's episode of Racking Up Rentals. So again, show notes can be found at thoughtfulre.com/E202. Please do us that big favor by hitting the subscribe or follow or plus sign button or whatever it is where you are listening or watching this. If you could rate and review this podcast, that is so helpful. I see every one of those ratings and reviews, and it just feels like a personal thank you, and I'm super grateful for those, and it really helps the show to grow and spread too. So thank you so much for doing this. Did you know we have a Facebook group for us trees, us thoughtful real estate entrepreneurs as well? Yep, Rental Portfolio Wealth Builders. Just search for that on Facebook or type in group.thoughtfulre.com into your browser. The magic of the internet will take you right there in Facebook. So I will see you in the next episode. Until then, this is Jeff from the Thoughtful Real Estate Entrepreneur signing off.